With 4 Supreme Court appointments on the line over the next 4 years, and with decisions on everything from abortion access to voting rights, it's hard to imagine a time when the stakes have been higher. And with so much at stake with the presidency, it's easy to forget that the struggle for positive, progressive change has to be fought every day, and not just once every 4 years in November. For more on this, I'm joined now by Sam Daley-Harris, founder of Results, CEO of the Center for Citizen Empowerment and Transformation, and author of Reclaiming Our Democracy, Healing the Break Between People and Government. Sam, welcome back.
Great to be here.
Great to have you with us. So you've recently had dozens of one-on-one conversations with people that you consider to be thoughtful and awake, and yet you keep hearing this constant drumbeat of cynicism, if I understand your writings correctly. Where is that cynicism coming from? And how is it shaping this election, potentially the future of our country, and what do we need to do about it?
Yeah. So,
or is it entirely justified?
Well, here's the deal. The bottom line is, if you're involved in effective action, and I'll describe effective in a minute, on an issue you care about, then you tend not to be that cynical. If you're on the sidelines, you're watching the news, reading the news, but not doing very much, and your action, whatever you might do, doesn't feel effective to you, you tend to feel cynical. So when I say effective, of course it means you care about the issue, and the solution you're working on has some vision to it. But the effective part comes when you're going through a comfort zone, or you're having some kind of breakthrough. You're seeing yourself as an activist in a new light. If you're taking that kind of action, you're changing, and you're probably going to stay in the game as a result, and you tend to drop the cynicism.
So given that kind of psychological analysis of this, would it be reasonable to think that a lot of the disaffected Bernie supporters now feeling pushed out, their candidate has lost, and they're not necessarily enthusiastic about Hillary Clinton, or at least yet, or haven't, that they went from being on the inside feeling really excited, I'm going to make change, we're going to reinvent this country, to now standing on the outside feeling disempowered, stripped of their power, and thus cynicism?
Well, that gets to something else we talked about before, which is the whole issue is seeing the election day or the convention as a finish line,
right? Rather
than seeing, and you're a sprinter,
which is a critical
I'm
error.
a Bernie sprinter.
Right.
No, I'm a distance marathoner, ultra marathoner, and so even if Bernie were elected, I would have had to be in the game for years to come to make that kind of change. Right. I couldn't have gone, he's in, inauguration day, I'm done. No, that's not.
Yeah, we made that mistake in 2010 and 2014.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the more that people who were passionate about Bernie keeps passionate about their issues, the more that they'll be in the game, and the change that's needed will come.
Yeah. So why are so many people on the sideline, and what does, or why does effective action seem so elusive?
Well, so first of all, if I act alone, it will tend not to be that effective. So I'm acting with others, let's say. And if I'm acting on a global or a national issue, getting money out of politics, climate change, mass incarceration, poverty, and I'm working with a national organization, national organizations tend to keep me doing busy work too much, keep me a bit on the sidelines. So we've talked about Citizen Climate Lobby having 1,000 to 2,000 on their monthly conference call. They had their conference last month. They had 1,000 people come to DC for the conference. Only 800 could go to the Hill because they wanted to keep the meetings. They had over 500 Hill meetings last month.
Hill meetings, meeting with members of Congress.
Members or their staff, one or the other. You can only have 535. They had over 500. When a group comes to DC, it's usually 100, 200, 250 max. They not only had over 500 Hill meetings, they came to town having already had 300 back home since January. So this is, now when you have over 500 Hill meetings, you're meeting more Republicans and you're doing it on climate change.
Right.
And so, you're going through some of these comfort zones and to come out, hopefully, the other side of seeing yourself in a new way. And
so is the antidote to cynicism, I would like some other words here, but
yeah.
And even despair, actually.
Yeah.
I think some people
Resignation?
are feeling. Yeah, resignation. I mean, there's this
Yeah.
whole spectrum of emotions, and even kind of depression and
Yes,
whatnot.
yes.
Is the antidote to all that when that comes out of the political process to remain engaged in the political process or not, but to throw yourself fully into movement politics?
Yes, absolutely.
Or movement activities?
The political process, if we define it as primaries and elections, is a very limited process. That's not where the meat gets ground up and made, kind of thing. That happens during the congressional
Interesting
session.
metaphor for two vegetarians.
Sorry, that's right. But anyway, that's not where the stuff happens.
Yeah.
It happens in between the elections, and that's why we have to be in the game.
Yeah. So if somebody is sitting, if somebody's watching this right now and they're saying, I'm pretty bummed out, and the best, and literally, I mean, psychologists will tell us this as well as political consultants and movement consultants like yourself. If the best antidote to despair is action, I need to find a group
Yes.
that resonates with my heart
Yes.
and my mind
Yes.
that I can fully throw myself into. How do I do that?
Well, so first of all, that's a group locally that's probably connected to an organization, statewide or nationally, that feeds the group, that feeds us, and that's the trick. Groups like the Quaker Lobby FCNL on mass incarceration, or Results on Global Poverty, or Citizen Climate Lobby on climate change, tend to have these deeper structures of support, feed their volunteers to have these kinds of breakthroughs that makes action the antidote to the despair, basically.
Right. So if I'm part of one of these groups,
Yeah.
or if I'm even leading or aspiring to lead one of these groups, whether they're local or
Yeah.
statewide or national, what are the tools? What are the strategies, the techniques that I need to be, or our viewer needs to be employing or bringing into the
Let me just say this. I was on the phone today with the head organizer for the Quaker Lobby, and they're having their monthly conference call next week. And the action part is, how do you find out when a town hall meeting is? How do you get to next year?
In other words, when a member of Congress is coming into the district.
Yes. How do you get next to your member before they go on stage to have a private chat with them? How do you ask a question so you don't completely put them on the defensive or turn the crowd against them and you kind of thing? Or if you didn't do any of that, how do you race after them when they come off the stage and have a private chat with them in such a way that they say, go, there's my aide over there, go ask them to go set up a meeting with us.
Right.
So these are the kind of strategies. It's August. From the beginning of the Republican convention, they're home all of July, that part of July, all of August, and into September. That's perfect time to jump in and get involved.
To get it. And in your opinion, what are some of the groups that people should be looking at?
Well, again, the Quaker Lobby, FCNL, on fcnl.org, on Friends Committee on National Legislation.
Oh, yeah, the Quakers.
.org.
Friends Committee,
yeah, and on mass incarceration, that's what they're doing. They had no action teams 14 months ago. Now they have 28 around the country. They just started their most recent groups. So it's like this really live. I heard this story last week from them. Senator Joni Ernst was coming to some part of Iowa and called this family up, has a 15-year-old who's been active in the group, said, the senator wants to meet with you. You don't usually get that call. They go into the meeting. She says, I'm a co-sponsor on this sentencing reform bill. I'm getting some pushback, but I want to stay strong on it. The 15-year-old goes home, writes a letter to the editor expressing his support. It's published the next day in the newspaper. First of all, you don't usually get a call saying the senator would like to meet with the family, when she's in town next Friday. And if you do, you don't know what to do if she's saying, I'm getting pushback on the mass incarceration issue, but I want to stay strong. Great. I'll go home and help you stay strong by building a little bit of support.
That's interesting because Joni Ernst is, you know, I've always thought of her as kind of one of the crazier Tea Party type senators.
But on this bill, on the Sentencing Reform and Incarceration Act, she's a co-sponsor.
Right.
16 Republicans, 19 Democrats. Will it make it? Depends on how many citizens get involved to push it farther.
Right. So was it this group that brought this to her to begin with?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
So the Quakers basically flipped a Republican senator to support
a number of them. Yes.
A number of them.
Yes, absolutely.
That's remarkable. Where? Okay, so there's a bunch of there's Democracy for America, there's Progressive Democrats of America, there's the Friends group, you've got the Sierra Club, you've got, I mean, there's no shortage of groups, right down to Drinking Liberally, you know, which has chapters all over the country. We have about 30 seconds left. Where you just look for a place that feels good?
Well, here's the deal. You can feel good, but the question is, as a result of our time together, are there some breakthroughs?
Right.
Am I going through any comfort zones? Am I seeing myself in a new light or just having a good time? Nothing wrong with that. But really to actually chip away at the cynicism, I have to be seeing myself in a new light, which means I'm having some breakthroughs.
So this is personal as well as political transformation. Sam, thanks so much for being with us tonight. Sam Daley-Harris.